This episode is for the writer who is feeling that overwhelm. Every time you think about your memoir, your chest tightens because you're not nearly as far along as you think you should be or you want to be. I'm talking to the writer who can't let their memoir go, but who is also feeling crushed under the weight of what you've written. Today, I want to reframe that overwhelm for you so that you can see it as a tool instead of a block. Let's get into it. You are listening to the Memoir Method podcast, the place for writers, readers, and anyone who appreciates the collective power of our stories. In this podcast, we explore the impact of memoir alongside an examination of writing techniques and strategies used in the genre. Whether you are a writer looking for inspiration and guidance or a passionate reader seeking meaningful connections through shared experiences, the Memoir Method podcast is your go-to conversation spot. I'm your host, Charlotte, editor, writer, and the heart behind Charlotte Writes. Let's get started. Right now, the winter cohort of the Memoir Method is well underway, and we have weekly workshop calls. I'm going to bring you behind the scenes on a recent call in today's episode. One of my writers was clearly hitting some overwhelm. He was talking in circles and sharing all of the paths that his story could take. This writer is a fantastic thinker, and he's threading together so many different concepts. One of my biggest objectives in my Memoir Method cohorts is to help you navigate the overwhelm, not avoid it, because overwhelm is going to show up in your process, whether you like it or not. And so I really want to give you the tools to navigate it and to trust yourself as you do so. What I know that my writers don't at first is that this overwhelm is actually a data point, and it can indicate two primary realities. This is what I love to teach my writers to navigate. So one, it can indicate that you are ready to pivot your approach. You know the saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over, hoping for different results? I hate to break it to you, but that is what you are probably doing with your memoir. This overwhelm that you're feeling is the result of that hamster wheel of what you say to yourself is progress and discipline and consistency, but you're actually not making any progress. This is a classic symptom of the rewrite loop. If you don't know what that is, head to the link in the show notes to watch my free training all about this phenomenon. You're going to keep retooling your outline, rereading chapters that don't feel quite right, rewrite your way into so many different drafts that you can't remember where you put what. Sound familiar? So with this writer who was in this idea overwhelm, I asked him a few pointed questions about his story, offered my perspective on how he could rework the angle, and then he made the pivot. Some writers come into my spaces expecting me to make the creative process easier by infusing my expertise into your work in a magical way that will make everything click into place. But that's actually not my job, and I would be doing you a disservice if I tried. What I get to do in this editing coaching capacity is help you clear away the noise in your creative process and highlight different possible paths that you can take so that you can actually move forward with clarity. That shift from, oh my gosh, save me, to I've got this, help me execute it well. That's my exact goal with all of my clients. And in the Memoir Method specifically, my intention and objective is to give you the tools to navigate this drafting process with confidence. I want you to be able to trust yourself, because if you don't, then you are going to stay in that rewrite loop and you're going to keep outsourcing your authority as a storyteller and a conversation starter and a memoir author to other people. I never want you to force a framework or a system that is going to work against your creative process or style. I've worked with so many different writers over the years, and not one writer has the exact same process as another. There's a framework or tool that I'll use with one writer that won't work with another. And that's because everyone's process is different. And the way that you know what will work for you and what won't is by being able to trust yourself as a creative. I want to give you an entire toolbox that you can choose from strategically when it comes to integration and implementation. So with this Memoir Method writer, what we had been trying wasn't really working. So we fiddled, proposed some new options, and pivoted. Overwhelm can also mean that you are this close to a breakthrough. That overwhelm can mean that the clarity is so much closer than you realize. Sometimes that clarity will come in the form of a pivot. Sometimes it will come through simply working out the ideas. So this writer in this workshop, he likes to talk his ideas through. And as the editor, I find it fascinating to watch your body language as you are processing through creative overwhelm. So this writer was a little scattered. He still loved his story and the different threads he was weaving together. As I asked him questions specific to his story and his manuscript, different avenues started opening up for him. He actually started talking faster. He loosened his posture a bit and he leaned into the computer. And then after we got him through that overwhelm, he went to a notepad on his computer to take notes and he started implementing that reframe right away. So I want you to think about your overwhelm like a rocket ship or a spacecraft. When a spacecraft is exiting the atmosphere, it has to increase in speed and velocity. The moments before breaking through the Earth's atmosphere are turbulent, shaky, bumpy, loud, and probably more than a little scary. I've never been to space, but I've seen movies and it looks pretty intense. But when you can both reach and maintain the velocity required to break through the atmosphere, and when you can endure the scary ride it takes to get there, you're in space. Everything smooths out. You can see more clearly. You can move more slowly. You have a new perspective from which to view the world. That is what the creative process is like. So your overwhelm is not a sign that you're doing things wrong. This is just data on your process. Some writers' breakthrough is their pivot. Sometimes that first and second thing are the same for some writers. And some writers' breakthroughs are simple clarity that comes from continuing to push through and grapple with their ideas. This is going to be uncomfortable. And I know that as you are writing your story, you feel like you have all the information that you need because you lived it. But being able to translate that into a conversation that's exciting for your reader to engage with, that is going to require some growing pains. It's going to be uncomfortable because you are going to be forced into this position to try to be objective about your story, which is really hard to do, and to think about your reader and to operate in new creative ways that you haven't been required of you before. And as a writing coach and memoir editor, my job is to help you step into that version of you, help you realize how to write this way, how to be a creative this way that is going to actually move you forward and not just keep you spinning in that rewrite loop. What I offer my writers is a container in which to navigate that overwhelm and an objective, experienced, and professional third party to help you talk it through. I want to help you find the creative process that works for you and then support you in that way. So no matter how you spin it, overwhelm is going to be part of your creative strategy. And your job is to recognize it when it hits. And instead of succumbing to the overwhelm, stepping back and asking, okay, what is it that my memoir actually needs? What is it that my draft actually needs from me right here? Because this overwhelm is just an indicator. It's not this permanent state. It's not a sign that something's bad or that you're bad. It's a data point that you get to pay attention to and respond to in a strategic, mindful way. So here's what I want you to pay attention to. Are you spinning in circles and feeling like you are going over the same things over and over? If so, you might need some new angles to see your story through. Or do you feel like your ideas and memoir structure are slippery, like you can feel what you want to say without quite knowing how you want to say it? That might be a matter of creative perseverance. The biggest gift that I can give you in this short podcast episode is the reframe that overwhelm is not bad. It doesn't actually mean anything about you as a writer. It's just a signal to your creative process that you get to dial in on your clarity as an author. If you're sitting there listening to this episode and thinking, Charlotte, this is all fine and good, but I don't know how to do this. Again, we can receive all the information that we want. Information is abundant in the world right now, but actually implementing it, integrating it, that is where you're getting stuck. I have some thoughts and resources for you. First off, stop thinking about your memoir as a chronology and stop focusing on how to structure it, at least right now. Your memoir is a conversation. And once you dial in what you actually want to say, the structure part will become a little bit easier. In my free resource, the Magnetic Memoir Prompt Pack, I walk you through this philosophical reframe and give you access to the tools you need to actually integrate it into your draft right now. The link to access this is in the show notes. Second, you might be so accustomed to the overwhelm that your creative process has adapted to preserve it. That is something that is so interesting to observe and pay attention to because your nervous system becomes attuned to that overwhelm. It becomes comfortable in that overwhelm, even though you don't like the overwhelm, but your nervous system's like, oh, this is just something usual now. We'll just we'll take care of it because it's familiar, right? This is the rewrite loop. When you go in that loop of freaking out, hating what you're writing, and then binging content, even like this podcast, to try to make sense of what you're doing, and then you try to implement it, but then you just get back into that same like overwhelmed state. That's the rewrite loop. I break this down in so much more detail inside of my free training, the Memoir Breakthrough. Once you understand that rewrite loop, you won't be able to unsee it in your own creative work. So the link to that is also in the show notes. Finally, you might be someone who would really benefit from that objective, specific feedback. The best way to experience this is inside of the Memoir Method cohorts. This is an 8-week writing intensive where I walk you through my entire editorial framework so that you can apply it directly to your draft. This is part curriculum, part coaching, part actual editing, and I give you the toolbox, and then we practice implementing and integrating it into your actual writing. I will link to my website in the show notes so that you can learn more about the Memoir Method and join the waitlist for spring enrollment. Spring enrollment will be opening up on Monday, March 9th, and the waitlist will get first dibs and a discount. The cohort will kick off in mid-April. If you'd like to talk about private work, you can book a free call through the link in the show notes to talk about what that would look like for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you might be overwhelmed by your overwhelm, but as your writing coach and editor, I am not intimidated by that. That is such a common, normal thing to experience as a writer. And my favorite thing is to help you navigate that, show you how to lead yourself through that experience so that you can refine your own creative process and harness that overwhelm as a metric instead of an intractable state of creative resistance. So thank you so much. I'd love to know what landed for you in this week's episode. I really hope that I see you in the Memoir Method, and I will see you next week. You've just listened to an episode of the Memoir Method podcast. The Memoir Method podcast is presented by Charlotte Writes. If you liked what you heard, the best way to support the show is to subscribe through your preferred podcast player. And if you're feeling especially inspired, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leaving a review really does help other readers and writers like yourself find the show. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on my website at charlottewrites.co or on Instagram at charlottejanewrites. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. And remember that you have a story that matters.